Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the Ducks and Pucks podcast. This is the #1 home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
Welcome to the show. This is your host, Mike Walters, along with my co-host, Eddie Richard, and we have plenty of things to discuss on the show this week. We've got 4 games to cover, as we will in the beginning segment. As we always do, we talk about the last week's worth of games, and then we have plenty of conversation about Bob Murray. I went to the Hockey Hot Stove event at the Great Park Ice, and there's plenty of stuff that he talked about, and there's some good one-liners and different things that we can discuss. Some people not happy with them, some people are happy with them, so we'll dive into all that. That'll be a majority of the show in the middle segment, and then of course we'll wind up with the league news that Eddie likes to run down as what's going on around the world in hockey and the NHL. So with that, let's get to the games this last week, Eddie, and we start off, well, the first game wasn't so great. The Ducks played the Chicago Blackhawks. We did have a watch party at the Steelcraft in Garden Grove, which was awesome. We had a lot of people show up, a very, very good event. That part was good that night. The bad part was the game. The Ducks in the first period wasn't too bad. They got down 1-0. Then they got blown out in the second period. Josh Manson went out after the first period, so the Ducks had to play with 5 defensemen and none of their top 4 in this game. And they ended up losing this one 6-2. Just a terrible game. Unfortunately, Eddie, the Ducks had been playing better as of late with the new players. What did you think about this game? It really got unraveled in that second period.
Oh, that game was terrible. It was really bad. It was hard to watch. Ducks were just flat, and they made that Chicago team look way better than they should have looked. I think the only thing that was good about it was the watch party and all the fans that came out, the good beer over there, and then those sausages too that we both had at the end. That was pretty good, but Ducks just didn't have any motivation, or it didn't seem like they have any will to play. It was just, they seemed like they were just dead in the water, and it was a really tough game to watch. No one really supported Gibson. Didn't have his best game. Miller, I credit him. Was probably the best Ducks player that came in when he came into relief. He came ready to play, and he made some crucial saves, because I think it would have been 2 or 3 more goals that would have been scored if Miller didn't come in and play that style. But it was just a tough one to watch. I'm glad that it was a watch party, so it was mingling with the fans and talking to people and being at a different location and around other Ducks fans. I think that's made it bearable, but other than that, it was a tough one to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just, once that second period got going, it was terrible. Like you said, nothing much better to say about it. I do give the Ducks a little bit of a pass in this game. They did play poorly, don't get me wrong, in this contest. However, when they had none of their top guys and they had to play 5 defensemen for the last 2 periods, you knew things weren't going to go right. I didn't think that they were going to win when Manson didn't come out in the second period. However, they did get blown out. This wasn't even close. I felt in this game that Irwin and Larson looked just god awful. Unfortunately, we talked about Irwin. We talked about Irwin on the last show and how he had been used, very frequently on the penalty kill, not getting many points or anything like that, but had been solid for the Ducks. And once he got thrust into this role, which, I mean, is what Dallas Aikens had to do, he had to shuffle the defensive pairings, and they had to play these guys all more minutes, obviously being down another person and being down basically one of your top guys in this contest. But those guys got thrashed. Irwin and Larson, they got burned a couple times, gave up a handful of these goals against the Blackhawks. Did not look good at all. And I agree with you. Miller came in the third period. They took out Gibson, which I felt was the right move after that god-awful second period. And Miller looked good in this game, as you mentioned, Eddie. And as far as Manson, the Ducks said it was an upper body injury, but if you watch the game at home on TV, Hayward said that he was actually dealing with the flu. I guess an upper body flu. I guess that's what we'll call the penalty, or not the penalty, but the injury. So whatever. So
that's a good one.
Upper body flu. So that's a new one. So mark that down. That's what we're gonna add. Supposedly that's what some of these players are dealing with. Still, unfortunately, is illnesses and whatnot. So that took out the Ducks situation in this one. I knew that they pretty much weren't going to win this game into the second period. So like I said, I give them a little bit of a pass, but still, overall in this performance, defensively, it just looked bad. They didn't give up any goals on the power play, which was good in this contest, but just the coverage, it was just terrible. And I think thrusting those guys into this position wasn't good. And we'll talk about the next couple games coming up, but the other one that concerned me too was Larson, Eddie. He has not looked good in the last couple games as well.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the player that he was projected to be. He's not like everyone thought he was going to be, a future, a top player. He just hasn't really been playing that well. He's looked flat the whole time. Like it's one of those players where now it's like if he would have got traded at the trade deadline, no one's going to be like, oh, why'd you trade him? It'd be like, okay, good riddance. He's just not playing well. I don't know what's going on with his game. Hopefully, this remainder of the season he can figure it out and pick it up. Maybe he needs more time in San Diego. I have no idea. If not, trade while I guess his asset's a little bit, medium range right now. You can get something back for him, but he's not the player that he was projected to be. And it stops to think like going back to that trade deadline or not trade deadline, the expansion draft with Las Vegas. Like maybe we should have gave away him and found a way to keep Theodore, because it seems like Theodore's having a great seasons with the Golden Knights and Larson's not. So it's just hopefully it gets figured out. Hopefully he gets traded and we could get something in return from him. If not, then we're just SOL at this point.
Yeah, and that's how the rest of the season's kind of going so far. We'll have updates on the Ducks, defensive players, but Fowler, Goodbranson, Lindholm, they're out all these games still. We got Manson back in the Minnesota game. We'll talk about that, but they're without them three, so they're forced right now. The Ducks are to play all these players pretty much, other than also Gooley, who they had sent down this last week. But there's people being put in situations and having to play more minutes than normal. So that's what happened in this game. Like we said, the Ducks went down. The good part was the watch party, as Eddie mentioned. There was about 100 people there that I counted during the game, and I would say close to 60 of those people came from, basically social media or other friends seeing the watch party info got posted. So the good news about that is we are going to have another watch party there on March 23rd when they play the Edmonton Oilers. That game is at 6 o'clock on a Monday. So if you have to work, it gives you some more time to get there, where this game against Chicago was at 5:30. So look for that. We'll have another watch party. So that was the good thing out of this contest, off the ice, if you will. So, of course, the Ducks after this, Eddie, getting blown out by Chicago. They go to play your other team that you love, the Colorado Avalanche. And you and I joked about this beforehand. I said, that I think the Ducks are going to get smoked and probably lose this game. And you said, no, don't be surprised. The Ducks might steal this one. And the Ducks did steal this one. So you called it, which was hilarious. This game was, oh my God, this game was a track meet to start off. Miller was in net to start this contest. You had a bunch of goals scored in the first period, 4 in total. You had another Delorier fight. All kinds of excitement, a back and forth game. The Ducks were ahead. Then Colorado came back in the third. Then the Ducks went into overtime. It looked like it was going to be shootout time, and Ricard Raquel had other plans. He ends up scoring with just 1.2 seconds left. Remember, we kind of gave him some shit on the last show because he's been in a drought, and he actually came through and got a goal, which, thank God, good for him. Maybe we should talk a little bit more negative on him. Just kidding. But, we did. We talked about how poorly he'd been playing, which he hadn't been scoring in, 5-6 weeks and whatnot. So he came through with a huge goal. Good for him. This game, I mean, I know you still got your Colorado stuff, but you probably are kind of happy because the Ducks won and got a point, but then Colorado, who's fighting it out for first place in the Central Division, they still got a point. So, both your teams didn't really lose in this one. What did you think about this contest, Eddie?
This was a really fun game to watch. It felt like a playoff atmosphere kind of game. And yes, I do love the Colorado Avalanche too, but Ducks are my first team. Ducks before anything. So I was cheering for the Ducks to get that win, but it seemed like this season, the Avalanche have a lot of problems playing against the Ducks. That first game they lost 5-2, and then that second game they played when they won 1-0. It's just a bad turnover led to a goal. But I mean, the Ducks shut down McKinnon and all the Avalanche's top players, and this game just was even better. Like, holy crap, these two teams felt like they hated each other. The way that the game was played, like, it was just so entertaining to watch from start to finish. It was a great game, and of course, that monkey off the back where Cal scores in the final 2 seconds of overtime and to seal the deal and get the Ducks a win. Like, holy crap, what a game to watch. Like, the only regret I have is not actually being there live and watching it. It was just such a fun game to watch, and Ducks really showed, and they rose and showed the potential they can be. Like, they were fast. They outskated the Avalanche at times. You had Agazino scoring his first goal as a Duck, former Avalanche player. He got kind of like shoves it up his team's ass or something. But it's just like the way he scored, he was just so happy. I'm like, man, of course the announcer's like, oh yeah, one time Avalanche property, and then boom, he scores. It's like, it was just a fun game. It's one of those games where you just like, you're hopeful for the future.
Yeah, this game was crazy. I was watching it and I was like, oh my gosh, they're going so fast in this one. The Avalanche always, have an up-tempo game. You can't, keep them, I guess, contained, because McKinnon scored and Landeskog scored in this one, both on the power play. So, the Ducks, we'll talk about the special teams, too, a little bit later in the show. Special teams have not been so special in this last stretch last week. After some improvement on the power play the week before, this week was bad. And the penalty kill, well, it kind of stayed the same. They gave up a couple goals here, and that's why the Avalanche hung in this one. But, there were times, too, that the Avalanche, I don't remember how many posts they hit in this game, Eddie, but it was ridiculous. It seemed like every, other shot you'd hear, oh, crossbar, oh, post. I mean, they were all over it. Avalanche could have definitely won this game in regulation. Nothing to take away from Ryan Miller. He also had an excellent game as well and kept the Ducks in this one to get to overtime. And by him getting this win, it was his 386th career win, putting him 15th on the all-time wins list, passing Mike Vernon. So congrats to him in this one. And another part of this too, Eddie, that was kind of crazy is Colorado had won 7 in a row going into this game. And that's why I was kind of like, I don't know if the Ducks are going to win this one. But as you talked about, and we kind of joked about before, the Ducks, they pulled it out and were able to steal a game.
Yeah, and one note to talk about is Francouz played his 3rd game against the Ducks this season. Grubauer's out with an injury. The first 2 games they played against Francouz, and this is the first game where the Ducks played against where he looked incredibly shaky and bad in this game. Like, yeah, that 5-2 win, the first game they played, he still made some good saves, and he still was on his game, and it just, all the goals that were scored were just beautiful goals. This game, he looked like he was, I guess, the rookie that he is, a 29-year-old rookie that he is, but I guess thank goodness for Ducks fans that he had an off game and the Ducks came to play, and it was just from start to finish, like I said, a beautiful game and so fun to watch. He had everything in it. It's funny, I noticed that fight against with Delorier and Bellemare. If you guys didn't see the clip on DucksNPucks, our Twitter, you see Agazino pushing Bellemare and kind of antagonizing him, and then he turns around and starts fighting Delorier. So it's like, oh, it reminded me of I guess little brother pushing big brother into the middle child, and they start fighting. It's just awesome. But yeah, this was probably one of my favorite games of the season, and not just because the Avalanche were playing. It was just you had everything in it. It was just a really fun game.
Yeah, it was a fun game. And another thing to note too in this is that Hakanpää got to make his NHL debut with Manson being out, and he played a solid game. He played 15 minutes. He had a shot on goal. He had 4 hits. And I like what I've seen in this guy. And, he played in a couple more games this week. And as far as, the Ducks being injured or whatnot, it looks like he's going to keep on playing until Fowler, Goodbranson can possibly come back. So I thought he did good in this contest, and I thought he did good this week in general. So a lot of good stuff from this game. The Ducks ended up splitting this quick road trip, and then they ended up going back home to take on Toronto. And the Ducks actually played well in this game too, Eddie. They got a goal early in the first period. They then built a 2-0 lead in the third. And, they had chances to really blow this game wide open, especially in the first period. The Ducks had lots of chances to make this a multi-goal lead early on. They looked really good in this contest. And then, unfortunately, Gibson did have to come out in the third period. We later found out that he pulled his groin muscle slightly and that he actually pulled himself out of the game because he didn't want to further injure himself. So good on him for recognizing that. Miller had to come in. He ended up giving up one goal and made this a game in the final minutes. And Toronto really put on a lot of pressure at the end of this contest, but he was able to hold on and preserve the win. And the Ducks, they won this one 2-1, Eddie.
Yeah, this was a good game and another fun one. Rowney's goal, it was so funny. Like, he was so confused at, like, when you watch that replay, when that puck just went right to his stick, like perfectly timed, he seemed like he was just kind of in shock, like, holy crap, like, should I go buy a lottery ticket? Or I don't know if he had a rabbit foot tied to his hand or something. He just saw the puck right there and then swooped it in. But I think the only bad thing that this league got wrong was Jack Campbell should have been one of the stars. They had William Nylander as a third star. I think Jack Campbell kind of deserved that, that star. He played a great game. It was a goaltending battle, and the Ducks just they just outplayed Toronto. I don't know what's going on with that team too. Toronto has such a stacked team. Like, on paper, they look unbeatable. Like, I bet if you sim the season, NHL 20, whatever you play, they're a dominant team, but they just didn't look like that. And it's just their playoff hopes and their contending status is kind of dwindling. But the Ducks just came at it, and I think Toronto made the Ducks look like a playoff team. Like, these two games, the Avalanche and the Ducks, they just showed something different. And it's just unfortunate for the Avalanche and Toronto, which are fighting for, like, top spots in the playoff contending standings. Just didn't really go their way.
Yeah, and that's kind of the role we've talked about with the Ducks too, right? This is, basically kind of a lost season in terms of playoffs and any kind of contention. And I think we mentioned it on the last couple shows, but the Ducks are playing the role of spoiler now. Colorado did get a point in that game, as you mentioned, but they didn't get a regulation win and get the 2 points, or even an overtime win and get 2 points. So they, kind of slowed them down there a little bit. And like you said, Toronto didn't get anything out of this game. And, the Ducks, with their depleted defense, and this one did a good job. I mean, you kept Austin Matthews off the board. So, I mean, he didn't get assist or a goal in this game. And that guy has just been unstoppable this season. So, and they have other good players too, not just, him. But, I mean, to slow him down, at least, not even get a point in this game, and you're without your top 4 defensive players, was a great job by the Ducks in this. And you also had a couple other notes in here. You had Henrique getting his team-leading 25th goal on the season, so he keeps on racking them up. And then in this contest, too, you had another fight with Delorier. And this one, I like this one even more than the one he had earlier in the week, Eddie, because Clifford went after Backus and rocked him. Good, clean hit. There was nothing dirty about it, but he really jolted Backus. And Delorier went straight after Clifford. Clifford didn't back down. They had a good fight. They tapped each other after the fight was over. And I like that. I thought that was good because Delorier, doing what he needs to do to keep his role. I mean, obviously he got that 2-year extension, so he's not going anywhere. We hope, in the immediate future. But I like what he did here. I thought that was a really good play, and I liked how he and Clifford did their thing, and it was all good.
Yeah, Delorier has been one of those players that's just a warrior. He's one of those, he puts his team first out of everything. It's such a great guy. I talked to him on a direct message about our t-shirts we had about the Anaheim Fight Club, and he loved it, and he was all for it. So if you guys haven't ordered or checked it out, definitely check that out and order a shirt and show support for him. But it was a good fight. Like, it just welcome to the team, David Backus. It was a good, clean hit by Clifford, and then Delorier just, went up there and challenged him. They both fought. They both understand their roles, and like you said, Mike, I'm glad you mentioned this. Like, that little tap at the end, like, hey, good job, good fight. Like, it was awesome. I was at Fridays at the bar watching this game, and, like, everyone kind of just stopped and was watching when they started fighting. It's like, oh, this is what hockey's about. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's not as much as it is before, but it's still there. You have players like him that are team first kind of mentality players and do whatever it takes to win. And then his points and just his production, he does a lot more than just fight. He just opens up ice for other players to make plays, and he's been chipping in. He's got a few goals recently, and it's just great to see him get rewarded with that contract. When you were talking about the hockey hot stove too, about Murray saying he earned the contract, I definitely agree. He's one of those players that definitely you want on your team, and it's just awesome to see that. And hopefully, I wish that fight would have went a little longer. because they're both big boys, and Clifford is not shy away to stay away from the fights. But it was still a good fight, and I'd probably call it a draw. So I think he's a 12-1-1 in the season with fighting.
Yeah, I think on Hockey Fights, I had to double check. I think they still gave it to Delorier, but you're right. It was pretty close. It was a pretty good fight. And Clifford's the same way. Yeah, a lot of us don't like him because he was on the Kings. Yeah, I get it. But he does stand for his teammates too. So it was a good bout, and you're right. It would have been nice to maybe go a little bit longer because you know how much we love Hockey Fights. So. But if you miss any of those, make sure you go to hockeyfights.com. They have like every fight in the world on there. It's a really great website. So as far as this game goes, though, yep, the Ducks pulled out another win. Also, before we move to the next game, check out tpnhockey.com. That's where you can get that Delorier Fight Club shirt. As Eddie mentioned, it is Delorier approved. So check it out. It's been a pretty popular shirt out there that a lot of people like. So with that, we'll kind of wrap up this section up. We've got one more game against Eddie's favorite other team, the Minnesota Wild. And this game was a Wild game. I know, bad pun. I'm sorry. Yes, it was intended. The Ducks in this one actually got out to a lead, and then the Wild ended up scoring a couple goals in the first period to take the lead 2-1. The Ducks rallied back twice in this game. Down 2-1, they rallied, and also down 4-3. Ended up forcing overtime, and they lost this game. Again, the penalty kill wasn't so special. They gave up 2 goals on the power play. The Ducks, they ended up getting a point out of this one. You did see Juice get his first goal as a Duck, which was great, and you saw Silverberg come through with 2 goals, getting his 20th goal in the season. So some good stuff that did happen in here, Eddie. But the Ducks unfortunately lost this one, and we'll talk a little bit about the controversial play in a little bit too. But what did you think about this contest?
I'm still pissed off the Wild one. I hate the Wild so much. I hate them more than I do the Kings. I was joking with my buddy yesterday too. He was talking about he's a Kings fan, and I asked him like which team do you hate most? He's like, I hate the Golden Knight fans. It's all the bad. He was like, if it came down to it, he goes, I'd rather root for the Ducks than the Golden Knight fans. Like, holy crap, we're in the same boat. But for me, it's just the Wild. The Wild I absolutely can't stand this team, and their fans are annoying. Everything about this team I hate, and it sucks that the Ducks lost to this team. But it was still a good game, minus that controversial goal. And if you guys want to check it out on Ducks and Pucks, he has a better view of it. If you go on the NHL app, it just show you just one view of it. It doesn't look like it was controversial at all, but it kind of sucked. It's bad. The Ducks didn't play bad. They played well. Miller had a good game. All the moving parts are moving. The Ducks had a sound game. I was kind of shocked, and I know it's sad to say, but I didn't know Henrique had that many goals coming up in the season. I thought he had a little bit less. I don't know if I just got it kind of screwed up with the stats and stuff like that. But I was looking when Silverberg scored his 19th and 20th. I was looking up all the rosters, all the stats, and Henrique is on his 25th goal. I'm like, holy crap, that's kind of amazing. It seemed like the Ducks were shooting really low too on Dubnyk. I think all the goals that were scored were just real low on the ice. None of them were high. So I think they kind of figured him out. They figured him out early. It's unfortunate the Ducks just couldn't get this win. Man, at least just beat the Wild.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I get you on the goal thing with Henrique. I mean, with the Ducks, there's not a lot of offense this season. Now we have 2 20-goal scorers, right? Silverberg getting up there now. Thank God. I don't know if we'll get a third or not. That would have to be Raquel or Gatzov to really turn it on at the end of the season here, which I don't think is going to happen. But yeah, they've been providing some of the offense as of late, especially this week. But as you said, getting frustrated about losing because you're not a fan of the Wild. But this game, it really irritated me in the first period. When I was there, I was getting kind of crazy. I'm really mellow when I go to the games now, except when there's a fight or a goal. Obviously, I jump up and down and get excited, or a shootout as well. I like to get intense with those. But I was really mad. My other half had to calm me down, and I guess like Eddie said, some of you saw the play and they didn't really show a good view. And as you know, I record the games at home, but I also record when I'm there and post the videos, and you can see on the overhead, because everybody was booing like crazy in the stadium, that there's interference. in this play. Miller gets clipped. He's not able to make the save on that first goal against the Wild. So Dallas Eakins, he throws out the challenge, which is exactly what he should have done. And we all were thinking, okay, it's going to be fine. They're going to take this goal away. And of course not, they don't. And then, as you know, if you fail at a challenge, then you get a delay game penalty. And then the Wild scored on that power play. And of course, more boos rang down at the Honda Center. And then I was even more livid because the Ducks, go from 1-0 to now being down 2-1 because of this BS call. And I'll explain why it is a BS call. I'll kind of go through the rule. I saw a lot of people talking about it and saying that, well, it was a good goal because Miller's out of the crease. That's only part of the rule. That's not necessarily why this should not have been a goal. So if you look at the rule, it's rule number 78. And you can check it out. You can Google it and go on their website. I'm looking at now. I read the entire thing. There's a whole bunch of parts to it. But the first part about it, we'll kind of break it down real quick here and go over it. It talks about, what is when a goal is disallowed in regards to a goalkeeper. And then it says, quote, goals should be disallowed only if, one, an attacking player, either by his positioning or by contact, impairs the goalkeeper's ability to A, move freely within his crease, or B, defend his goal. So going by that there, you look at the definition of the rule here, kind of almost going back to my law school days, breaking down a rule here and applying it to a situation. Obviously, we have an attacking player, right? The Minnesota player coming in there. And is there either his positioning or contact? Yes, there's contact, right? His skate hits Ryan Miller's right skate. Now, this is where everybody, debated about this is, okay, did it affect him in the crease? Well, I went back and looked at the video. I broke it down, frame by frame, looking at it real closely. And yes, there's contact, and the contact is made when Miller's right skate is just outside of the red line on the white part of the ice. So that part, it is outside of the crease. So when they came back and said that they allowed the goal because of that part made sense to me. The thing is, though, in this rule, it says, or defend his goal. So that means it only has to be one or the other for this not to be allowed. Well, he wasn't able to defend himself to get to that puck and stop it. And it says defend his goal. It doesn't say defend his goalie crease or defend his goal in the crease. It doesn't say anything like that. It's a vague statement, I'll give you that, but it says defend his goal. He wasn't able to defend his goal because of the contact. And I'm usually not that adamant about this stuff, but I'm going to be adamant about this one. That shouldn't have been a goal. The NHL got it wrong. I'm sorry, not sorry. You look at the rule and look at how it's written. Either they forgot the or part, fine. It's worded poorly, I get it. Then fix the rule because it says defend his goal. And he was not allowed to make a move. He couldn't push off with his right skate to get back over and get that puck. So whether or not he was in the crease or not doesn't matter. I mean, that is part of the rule and a large part of it in this discussion when you read it on the website. But in this situation, it doesn't matter because he wasn't allowed to make a play on the puck. So I kind of went off on it. I don't mean to, but I'm just kind of adamant. If you want to chime in on this, Eddie, the rule is what it says. You can go there and read it. And by looking at this rule and applying it, that goal should not have counted.
I think these rules are sometimes ambiguous with the referees. I think a little bias was shown toward the Wild, like they're hunting for a playoff spot, and I think they're in the first wild card spot as we speak right now, and I think that it kind of it leaned in their favor for it. I think if both these teams were completely out of a playoff spot, it would have been a different way. But I think the Wild got shown some kind of a little bit of credit or leeway because they're fighting for a playoff spot, which is unfair and it's just ridiculous. Like the rules are stated for a reason. The rules are there, and it seems like these officials and whoever's watching it just they kind of play with the motion and the Wild are competing for a playoff spot. The Ducks aren't. Let's just try to go their way instead of just relying on the rule directly. I mean, you laid it out. You had a good argument, and you do it all out there. It's like the rule stated, it's goalie interference, period. That should not have been a goal, but apparently these officials and people reviewing had other agendas on their mind, and it seems like they want the Wild to go to the playoffs, and it's stupid and it sucks. And I'm not saying it because I hate the Wild. I'm just saying in general, and it's not just the Ducks play X, Y, and Z teams. It's just it happens throughout the whole league, and it's getting frustrating. Something needs to change, and it's not happening. It's kind of ruining the game the way it's being officiated.
Yeah, and I mean, if obviously for the Ducks, we know the season's whatever. We've already talked about that. Everybody knows that. So for the Ducks to lose a game in regulation or overtime, it's not a big deal. We've talked about them being a competitive team, and that's what we want, and we've gotten that, even with the depleted defensive core. This team, you have to give them credit, outside of the Chicago game, obviously, but they've been playing overall, pretty competitive in these last couple weeks since the trade deadline. I don't think anybody can really argue that, overall. And as far as this rule, if they're saying that the quote defend his goal is referring to the crease, well, that's fine, but that's an interpretation. It's not spelled out right there. It's vague. So they either need to take that out or put that word in there to make it more clear. So I'm not going to beat a dead horse. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things for the Ducks this season, but rules are rules. So they need to, go by what the rule says. And if it's vague, then it's vague. But it still says his goal. So with that, we'll wrap up the week. And we'll get into the Murray hot stove conversation that he had at the Great Park Ice, which is really good. And Murray talked a lot about the rules at this thing and how he had a lot of disdain for them. So that's kind of a good transition here that we'll take with this. But I went to the event. Great event. I hadn't been to the rink yet. That place is phenomenal. If any of you haven't gone there yet, check it out. They've got 4 rinks lined up in a row. Just a fantastic facility, great parking, great location. I highly recommend going there and checking it out. And when I went, what I did is I took notes on all the stuff and I put it down in an article. If you haven't read it, you can go back there and read it. Keep in mind in that article, everything is in order of the way it was asked. So I didn't break it down or try to group it, which Eddie and I are going to kind of do here. We're going to talk more about topics, basically, of what he discussed instead of going through everything. And I'm not going to talk about every single thing he talked about because you can read the article. But there are some things that I didn't put in the article that we are going to talk about here on the show. So if you did read the article, this isn't going to be a completely the same discussion, but we are going to go over the main points and whatnot. And I think, the big thing in this, Eddie, that we can talk about, the first part of this conversation he had was the rebuilding process. And I think what I liked is, and it did start out with some questions about it, and I liked that he basically admitted that the rebuild started this year, but that he should have done it last year. He also felt that the team could compete in the beginning of the season, get a wild card spot, which I think a lot of us felt that way because they were winning in the beginning and doing well. And then obviously, they can't. The other part of this too that I like is they talked about a rebuild. Most teams do it in 5 years. He said he doesn't want to do it in 5 years. He wants to get it done sooner, which I like that. And he also said too that he doesn't just want to do a quick rebuild and the team has one good year. He wants to have an extended period of time where this team competes, just like the one we just had where the Ducks, were basically in first place almost every year in the Pacific, and then we're competing for the playoffs. So I did like that discussion. Eddie, what did you think about his comments about the rebuild and him kind of, owning that, he needs to get his butt going and get this, moving faster?
I don't know. I'm still kind of with him. I'll say this. I still don't think he's the GM of our future, and he's the GM of success. He reminds me of a politician. He says all the right things when it matters, and he just gives you fluff words. Like he keeps mentioning retool, but I just don't think he's gonna bring this team to success. It frustrates me, and I'm glad the things he's done, the success that the Ducks had, but it just reading and hearing him talk, it seems like it's bullshit to me, and I'm getting a little irritated with it. Like I said, he's just like a politician. He says all the right things, but just when it matters, there's no actions. He just he admitted he should have done this whole, I guess, rebuild or retool, whatever the hell he wants to call it. Last year, it's like, dude, of course, duh. Did you not see? We're Joe Blow nobody fans. And you and I are probably a little bit above that because we cover the Ducks and we do a lot of analysis on it. But just the average Joe Blow fan will know, dude, last year was horrid. It was bad, and now you're just admitting it, and you're just kind of I don't know. It just seems like he's using little fluff words and making people feel a little happy and, oh yeah, just come join me, vote for me and do this crap. I'm not buying it. Thank you for everything you've done. Expansion draft, I'll give you credit. You did a good job on that. Not losing someone that significant. It sucks we lost Theodore, but for the future and us actually winning, and being successful, it's going to take more than words. I want to see actions, and I don't want to just have to hear you say what you want to do and make me feel better, and then come 6 months from now, nothing changes, and you're saying the same thing like, oh, well, you know what, I'll admit that I did wrong, but I'm going to do this and make this team better and do everything, or I'm going to drop the beer prices by $4 and have all the fans happy. It's like, no, I want to see action. Like, just shut your mouth and produce it and show me action, not just words.
Yeah, a lot of fans feel the way you do, Eddie. We had a poll question up on Facebook, and it's almost in a dead heat, a confidence poll, if you will, on Murray. And those that are confident in Murray, it's 51%. Those that aren't is 49%. For the first time ever, too, we were talking about this before the show, I saw decimal points in a Facebook poll, which was crazy. It was 50 point something and 49 point something at one point. It's been going back and forth. So a lot of this topic, Murray and the confidence in him, fans are really divided in this, as you talked about. It's even when I was at the event, there were people there. I made friends with some other fans. We were having a good discussion while we were waiting for Murray to come out. And some people were like, yeah, I like what he's done. He's brought in some other players. He's trying to fix some mistakes and get this team going. And then other fans are like, nah, man, like, I'm done. Like, it's, he needs to go. His time's up, kind of a thing. And I even heard that from my ticket rep. There's a handful of people that did not renew their season tickets. And it was specifically because of Bob Murray. So, this is going to be really divided, this discussion, as far as whether or not he should be here or not. If you're listening, you're on one side or the other. And there's some mixes. There were some serious conversations, too, in our Facebook post from people, battling it out, saying that he's great and others saying he's terrible. I think he falls somewhere in the middle. I think he has done a lot of good things. He has not been perfect. He's made some mistakes as well. As far as, fixing this team and the rebuild thing, I was irritated like you, Eddie. I'm tired of this retool word. Just throw it in the trash, please. It's rebuild. I don't know why every time Hayward was talking about it, I kept saying retool. Let's stop talking about that, because either we're fixing this team or we're not. So I liked what he said, as Eddie mentioned. He says good things, but there's got to be some proof in the pudding, right? So one of the other things he did talk about was special teams play. He's trying to fix that, how it's been terrible. And we talked about last week how the power play had improved. It had done better. And that's Murray's number one concern, he said, is trying to get this team better at the special teams, which aren't so special. Well, in this last week, the Ducks went 0 for 9 on the power play. So after a week of doing a little bit of an improvement, as we talked about, it's gone downhill. It's the worst power play in the league. And if you look at the penalty kill, they were again 7 for 11, just like they were the week before, which is a measly 63.6%. And the penalty kill is 27th in the league. So those things haven't been fixed. So going along the lines of what you're saying, Eddie, I mean, it's only been a couple weeks, obviously, since this trade deadline, but this stuff hasn't been fixed. I mean, he's saying those things are a concern. He tried to bring in other players to help it out. Obviously, Milano, putting him on the power play, Heinen on the power play, Juice on the power play, as we've talked about. They've all played significant minutes. So he's made an attempt, but as far as that's going, with the special teams, Eddie, I don't know. It's something that's not fixed, and it's going to have to get fixed. He did talk about, also kind of jumping around a little bit here, but he did talk about the future of the team and trying to bring in defensive players that have a good one-time shot. He says most of the guys on the team don't. He's tried like Raquel and Silverberg, but they weren't really good at it. And that's been a big problem with this team is having somebody back there that can rip it. And I agree with him. But like you said, Eddie, in order for that to be done, he's got to go get somebody like that. He said that's the plan for the summer, but I mean, it's like you said, is he going to do it or not? I mean, so what do you think about the special teams play and how it's gone so far? I mean, it's only been a couple weeks since the trade deadline.
I think the word special really rings high alert for the Ducks. And it's not just this season. Like, it seems like the last few seasons, special teams have been an issue, but nothing has been changed. Like, nothing's been fixed. It's like it's like the power play. Like, I don't even get excited for a power play anymore. It's just like, okay, the Ducks are probably either going to get scored on or they're not going to produce. Like, it's just like whatever. Like, a power play to me means I'm going to go take a piss or grab another beer from the refrigerator because there's nothing to watch. Those 2 minutes is just dead freaking space, and that just gets frustrating. Like, dude. Like, our team has the potential to do great, and we've seen that potential. Just something's holding them back, and And it's like I talked about too. It's all empty words. He just says the right things, and he wants to do this, he wants to do that, but there's no action. Like, dude, you know the power play is bad. You're passionate about your team. I see you coming down to the 100 sections and watching the game like live. It's like you're there, like you have a passion, but it's like you don't do anything to change anything. Like, what does it have to take? You're dead last. You're behind Ottawa and Detroit, like the two worst teams in the entire league that are playing with borderline junior type players, ECHL players, and you're behind them on the power play, and nothing changes. Like hell, shit. Even call the freaking fans now. Like, just one day, just pick fans from the fucking stadium and bring them on the power play, because I think they might produce more than the Ducks have been. Like, I don't know why it's not happening, or he's not being aggressive enough. It's just, I mean, you're the general manager. This is your team. You orchestrated this team. You put them together. Dude, get in the locker room and chew some asses out. Like, yell at them, scream, something. Do it different. Like, I have no idea. I'm frustrated. Like, it's like a lot of other fans, and I know a lot of fans will agree that just the power play is just terrible, and it's just something needs to change. And I'm just sick of hearing him saying what needs to change and what's going to happen in the future. Just stop talking and just show me action. Like, stop showing me words.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big concern. And you know, when we go to the games, I hear it from the fans around us too. When the Ducks go on the power play, a lot of people joke. They're like, hey, can we decline the power play? Because, you know, we're not going to score. Or like you said, we give up a shorthanded goal, which is terrible. So he's got his mind in the right place, but is he going to carry it through? That's a big thing. So he did talk about some of the stuff that he did do, talking about the trade deadline. He said he was happy to get a first-round pick out of that. Obviously, that was the Kasha trade that happened a couple days before, but, you know, part of all this movement that happened. Some people did ask questions about certain trades, wanted to know what his thought process was. In general, he said that he made trades with players that he felt weren't going to help the team win. That's why most of those players were sent out. Obviously, Shore, Sprong, those type of guys. Holzer obviously being in the mix there too, and then Ritchie. And some people asked about the Grant and Ritchie trades. On the Grant trade, it sounds like from what he's saying that there's a really good chance that Grant's going to come back in July. That's what he said. Again, like Eddie said, that's words. We don't know. But I don't know, he's pretty confident that he was going to come back. So he also said, though, that he did want a higher draft pick out of it, which is what we talked about. We weren't happy. We felt that Grant could have at least commanded a third-round pick. Ducks got a fourth-round pick and basically an AHL player. So he did, admit to that as well. As far as the Ritchie trade, he felt Ritchie needed a change of scenery. And I guess apparently Ritchie had just some mental issues. Not mental like crazy, but mental like as far as confidence. They said that he was getting down on himself and his ability to play. And apparently he was wearing down himself and his teammates. So Murray did not like that kind of attitude being around the team and felt it was just time for him to go somewhere else and try and do better. So that's where that came from. So those are some of his comments that he made about the trade deadline. Eddie, what did you think about his thought process there and any of the other moves if you want to talk about any of them?
I was happy that he admitted that that Grant, that he wished he would have got more, because I was thinking that same thing too. So I'm glad that he admitted that and he took some responsibility for some of those things. I was also glad that he talked about Ritchie, the whole change of scenery. I had personal knowledge of Ritchie's attitude. I didn't like him from the start. Just one time when I was one of the elevators, there was one of the female employees having boxes she was carrying. She got in the elevator, and he told her that this is a players only elevator to use the stairs. And then Cam Fowler had to go up like, dude, she's carrying boxes, like she can ride the elevator, that's fine. It's just that rubbed me the wrong way, just seeing that attitude and that arrogance from him. I'm glad he's gone. Yeah, he's playing better toward the end, but it just from a top 10 pick and someone that's in the same draft round as Pasternak, it wasn't working out for him. And I think Murray's once again fluffing things about saying that it was weighing him down, weighing the team. I think there was more. He was just being a negative Nancy, if you want to call it, in the locker room, and he had to be traded. I think it was a good trade. I think that was probably one of my favorite trades of the deadline, was trading Ritchie and getting Heinen, because Heinen seems like he's working out great. He's a lot faster. He doesn't take dumb penalties, and I mean everything that Murray said at the Hockey Hot Stove, and good job on covering that, Mike. It was really informative, and you covered a lot of the topics. And I think you were like one of the first people to actually put it out, and for like other fans that didn't attend to see and show what's going on. But like I said before, actions speak louder than words. Yeah, he said all the right things, and I agree with like pretty much everything he said. But it's just like I'm at the point where I want to see more actions than words, like I said before.
Yeah, exactly. And going on the Richie thing you talked about too, I had personal knowledge of another separate incident involving him, which I can't talk about it because I was told not to talk about the specifics. But the reason why I bring it up is there was another incident involving similar stuff with his attitude as you talked about, and it made me not really like him. And I can at least mention it now because he's not on the team. But he doesn't have a good off-ice attitude, unfortunately. And some of the things that the one incident you talked about and the one that another friend of mine had experienced, that
he's an asshole.
Yeah.
It seems like he's an asshole.
Yeah, I don't want to say that, but yeah, pretty much. that's what it boils down to. And I mean, maybe some of you out there had good experiences with him, and if you did, I'm glad. I hope you did. But there's been some incidents where he's just not been a nice guy. So for me, I personally, and I rarely get personal on this show about things with players and stuff like that, but I was happy that he was gone, just because there was some off ice stuff that just, I don't need to go into it, and I'm not going to cause any problems here for people, but things that just rude. So I was glad that he was gone, and I the whole thing with his attitude, bringing himself down, other players down, when Murray talked about that didn't surprise me. So. I'm good with the trade deadline. I'm happy with what he did. We'll talk about the newer players in a little bit and how they're still doing well for the team, even though the power play is dipped back down. But that was his discussion pretty much of the trade deadline. Other than he said a lot of moves were made because a lot of players on other teams felt like they needed to change the scenery. Obviously, Milano was one of them. That's why they brought him in too. To the Ducks, so there was that, as you all know, as his situation in Columbus was similar to Sprong's. So a couple of the other players out there that needed to be moved. As far as getting this team going, so after the trade deadline and obviously the draft's coming up, free agency, things like that. Hayward asking him questions about that because, as we said, we need to start doing some shit to get this team going where we need to go. Right? This season's a lost season. Last season was a complete disaster, and he's trying to get this rebuild done in less than 5 years and not rush it, but. We need to make some moves, like Eddie said probably 500 times. But Eddie makes, he's right. I mean, talk is cheap, right? So he's said that he developed with his staff. He's got a lot of scouts that are part-time or full-time, travel all over, go look into things, does a lot of research. He's got a list of names ready to go coming up for the draft and the free agency, people that he's looking at. So there's that part. I'm not necessarily praising him because other GMs do the same thing, but he's in it early, I guess you could say. He's already doing all this stuff now, of course, because, as we said, this season's lost. He doesn't need to worry about playoffs and trying to do any of that kind of stuff. So he didn't mention any names, but he said he's really closely looking at players. And he said, quote, "We'll be looking for shooters in the draft. Some of the guys just can't shoot one-timers. It boggles my mind." And we talked about that a little bit earlier. He referred back to Niedermayer and Pronger when the Ducks won the Cup. They had two guys that could sit back there and blast the puck away. He's very frustrated because nobody on this team can do that. He feels on the power play with a really heavy point shot or one-timer for this team. So he wants to try to do that. One of the players that Eddie and I kind of looked at, because Murray kept talking about Sudbury and a big a player out there, is Quentin Byfield, who's doing very, very well over there. Maybe one of the guys that he's looking at, because he talked about a big kid that is a forward from that team in Sudbury. And we did some research. We don't know if this is the player for sure, but based upon his size, being 6'3", 6'4", it looks like that could be one of the targets, Eddie. But what do you think as far as the Ducks trying to get some of these players? Do you feel that if the Ducks are able to get one or two defensive players that can have a heavy shot, do you think that's going to cure the power play? Or do you think there's something more to it? Or what's your feeling about that?
I have no idea what the power play. Like I told you, at this point, I'm I'm thinking about recruiting Joe Blow fans up in the 400 level to shoot on the power play and get some goals. But if Quinton's a player he's after, I'd say that's a hell of a player to get. The former first round draft pick of the OHL. He just can do it all. He's big, but he skates like he's small. Like they're so fluid. It's natural to him. He's gonna be a superstar in the league. And if we can get a player like that, I don't care if we have to trade away some assets to move up in the draft to get him. Like he's projected to be second overall. He might even be first overall. Like it just depending on which team gets that. I guess gets lucky in the lottery and what they need and a certain skill set, but that's a huge asset to the team, and he can definitely replace Getzlaf, but be a faster skater and that can actually shoot the puck. So just think of Getzlaf 2.5.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was thinking too. Holy crap! If they can get this kind of guy, wow! I mean, this guy is highly rated. He looks very, very good. So. That was one name, like I said, Murray didn't mention, but he said, big kid, Sudbury. This is the big kid in Sudbury. So, we're connecting the dots here. I'm pretty sure this is the guy that he's referring to. Not saying that will happen, but he's looking at that. He's looking at free agency. He's looking at some defensive players. And of course, he doesn't want to get in big long-term contracts again. He did mention that at the event, which he's talked about before. As far as the rest of the season goes, he made a comment that some people got really upset about, and this one, I really wasn't that upset. I mean, if you weren't there, maybe you didn't understand the context of this comment, but one of the fans had asked about how the Ducks came out in that Edmonton game after the trade deadline. They seemed to be playing with more energy. Obviously, remember, they won that game. You had Milano getting a couple goals in there, and the Ducks were doing better, skating faster, and Murray talked about some of those things. Obviously, the trade deadline passed, players can relax a little bit and whatnot. But he talked about winning, and he said, quote, I'm not trying to win every game here, let's be honest. And he kind of had it with a little bit of a chuckle. And he also was talking about the draft throughout this event and how he wants to get a high draft pick. So some people, we talked about this, and they were upset. They were saying, well, you've got these newer, younger guys that are coming in that are hungry. Also people that are trying to prove themselves because they were traded from other teams where they were underutilized. So some people thought, well, winning's not important. And that's not necessarily what he's saying. Yes, winning's important. We've only got about a dozen games left to go. But the thing is Murray's not putting added pressure on them to win this last month worth of games. And to me, it makes sense. Yes, you want to be competitive. Yes, you want to win games. But he's at the same time saying, hey, if we drop some of these games, it's not the end of the world. And I think for the most part, we've talked about these recent games in the last 2 weeks. And overall, the Ducks have played pretty well in most of them, like we said, outside the Chicago game. So I don't think people need to stress out about it. The other comment he made that was pretty funny in my mind is I can tell he's irritated with the core players on this team. And he made a comment about that, saying that next year, quote, a gun is at the head of the core players. And he seems pretty adamant that he wants these guys, he's going to put pressure on those guys, the core guys, Raquel, who's been struggling, as we talked about, Silverberg, who's been doing well, Gibson, Getzlaf, of course, they've been the mainstays of the team. You've got Henrique doing really well, but some of the other guys haven't been putting up as much of the numbers that he would like, and so he's really on him about that. We've seen Lindholm kind of have an off year a little bit. Fowler's been injured here and there, obviously, but he's expecting more from the mainstays on this team, and I did like that part of it. So again, talk is cheap, but those are the things that he talked about as far as the situation with the rest of this team and kind of moving forward. And as far as that goes, Eddie, I don't know what you feel about that, but I'm okay with this team not winning the rest of the season. They could lose every game. I honestly, I know it sounds weird because of the draft and stuff like that and trying to get a higher pick, but as long as this team's competitive the rest of the year, that's really what I want to see, Eddie.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm glad you talked about that, because when I first read your article, I'm like, wait, Murray said that, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way too, and I was like a lot of fans probably took it the wrong way because we weren't there, so I'm glad you clarified that. Yeah, I don't, I do want the higher draft pick, I do want them to win, but I think you hit the nail on the coffin right there. You said be competitive. I want to see good hockey, and I've said this from numerous shows that if the Ducks lose a game but they're playing their asses off and they're playing great hockey, then it's fine. You lose with some pride. I just don't want to see a game like Chicago and them just intentionally tanking, or be like Edmonton that's have been accused but never verified of intentionally tanking and just to get that higher pick. I just want the Ducks to play some good hockey, build from there, and just kind of compete and be ready to be competitive in a few years, and not just go there with the mentality like, hey, well, screw it, we're just gonna freaking lose and whatnot, and not show any passion. And it's just not fair to themselves as professional hockey players. It's not fair for the fans that sit there and watch each game, and the fans that attend the games, that spend their hard-earned money on food and drinks and tickets to the games. Like, I just, like you said, I think you hit it the best when you said I just want them to play competitive, like win or lose. And yeah, I don't mind if they drop some games, not because they're tanking, but they're just playing competitive. But it's all to come down to, like you said, just playing competitive hockey. That's all I want to see, and just want to see and have some hope for the future that this team's going to be competitive once again.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the sense that I got from him in those discussions that he had at the event. The other part of this, really the last segment, it kind of alluded to it already. We talked about NHL Rule 78 and how I hate it with a passion because it's unclear. Well, Murray, it was kind of the theme of this event. He really hated a lot of the rules. He was talking about rules throughout this thing, and how they basically handicap a GM or a coach's decision and being able to do some things. And he brought up some good points about this. He talked about the trade deadline. People had some questions about that. He said, well, you have to send players down, at least on paper, to the AHL, so that way they can play in the remainder of the season, or they can play in the Calder Cup playoffs. So, you won't see teams necessarily mention this, but come trade deadline at the NHL, players are sent down, some stay down, some are brought back up, but they have to do that because of those rules. He didn't like that. The other part of it he didn't like is that the teams are limited to 4 non-emergency recalls after that. He's like, that's a bunch of BS too. Why should we be limited? You should be able to still be able to call up players at will, basically, until the end of the season. So those are some rules he did not like. He also talked about Max Comtois. Some people asked about him and how well he's done. Obviously, he got the Rookie of the Month. He's playing phenomenal right now with the goals. And the other rule that he talked about, it has to do with the CHL, that when a player goes up to the NHL and plays, a junior player, if they're not 20 years old and they're not going to stay with the team, you can't send them down to the AHL. You have to send them back to their junior team. That's just the way the rule is, unless they've had 4 seasons in the CHL. So, under 20 or not 4 seasons, and like that situation where they sent him down. Remember, he got hurt. He played the 10 games. So he got stuck, and Murray doesn't like that because a coach or a GM, you can't really decide how you want to fix a player or train a player or what you want to do in that scenario. And I guess he talked about Comtois going back to juniors, and they pressed upon him not to check hard, not be so physical, and not take so many penalties. So then once they were able to bring him back up and have him either in the AHL or NHL, they basically had to retrain him, Murray said, to get him to get back to being more physical and everything. And to me, that's a huge problem. I don't like that. So him talking about all these rules, not happy with them. He also talked about the offside rule. That's another one that Eddie, you and I talked about, and how we can't stand that rule. He brought up a good point, though. I didn't think about this. We talk about the rule and the whole skate up, skate down, the blade and all this stuff, and all the arguments that they make, and then the review and the angle, and then of course getting penalized when you get it wrong, and all of that. But one thing he brought up I didn't think about was interesting is he also talked about players getting injured because of the offside rule, saying that players are trying to stretch out, keep their back leg or skate on the ice, or try to parallel it and change direction when skating, and then players basically eating it or pulling a groin muscle or something like that. So I agree with him on that too. They're trying to fix the rule. Nothing official yet, but I hope that gets changed too. So I'm with them. A lot of these rules, Eddie, I'm not an expert. I don't know the CBA in and out, but I do go read it and study a lot of it, just because a lot of this stuff comes up and there's questions. Some of it is legalese, and I feel like I'm back in law school reading some of this nonsense. But I don't like some of these rules. I agree with them. I think not just for the Ducks, I think it limits teams all the way around, especially in the final months of the season.
Oh, definitely. And that offside rule is just like, I don't care if you're a professional hockey player. I don't care if you're Joe Blow, beginner hockey player. Like in any league you play in, if you play hockey, you understand this frustration and how ambiguous that rule is. Like some refs will tell you that if you jump, that it's fine. If you have one seat, it's just crazy. Like everyone that's played hockey, no matter what level you are or skill set you are, you've haven't dealt with an offside that was just kind of just BS. It's crap. It's nonsense, and I really hope they change the rule and they make it, some kind of a set standard and not just be so ambiguous that it is. I wanted to mention too, when I read your article, Mike, about Troy Terry and Max Comtois. They were so pissed off about being sent down, and I love that. I love the passion that they have, that competitiveness, that they're pissed off that they're just not like taking it. Like, hey, yeah, some players get sent down. Like, okay, I'll just play good in the AHL and hopefully earn my way up. No, these two players were freaking pissed off to be sent down, and they have a chip on their shoulder, and I love that. And it really sucks that when Comtois got sent back to his junior league, they kind of told him to not to play hockey. They just told him to play some badminton or whatever the hell they're trying to tell him to play, but not like being that physical. And he had to be called up to and be retrained. Like, no, you play to your strength, you play to your best ability, and that's how you're going to make it in the league. And then with Troy Terry, I think Troy Terry is something special in that kid, and I see it. A lot of fans see it. I think he's going to have a breakout season once he gets called up and full time. I think he's going to be a factor, and I think he really is going to be a superstar in this league. You mentioned guys like Patrick Kane. You mentioned guys, Kuznetsov, the way he skates and his ability. Like, he's hit a lot of posts this season, and hasn't really had that much luck this season, but it's all going to change, and I think he's going to really be a factor, and he's going to be a key success to the Ducks, moving forward in this rebuild process. And when they become competitive again, he's just going to be one of those players that it's going to contribute and make the team great. He's just a phenomenal player.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. Murray did talk about that too, about the rules basically, having to send people up and down and all this. And they, I guess, had an internal battle between Sherwood and Terry. They were trying to figure out, okay, who are we going to send down and keep down there, and who are we going to bring back up? And Murray said that he put Terry down in San Diego and kept him there because of his leadership abilities, kind of what you alluded to, Eddie. And Murray feels that he could carry that team and maybe make him a strong contender for a Calder Cup. So that's why he put him down there, because like we said, the Duck season, we know not much is going to happen. But it's unfortunate because the rules forced Murray to pick certain players. You can't, bring up everybody. And you gotta have, otherwise you have some players that won't be eligible to play in the AHL and in the play. I mean, there's just limitations, unfortunately, with the way the rules go. So he had to make that choice, and I don't think it was a bad choice. And he also talked about the whole thing, as you talked about, being pissed off, which is a good point. He said that he liked the fact that Comtois and Terry were pissed off because it shows to him that they're motivated, they're hungry, they want to be pro NHL players. They don't want to accept just being in the minor leagues. So some good stuff there that he talked about, really, in that situation. And basically with that, we kind of talk about shifting about these, other newcomers too, Eddie. We can kind of update some of the stuff. And the Ducks also did make a signing this last week, and we can talk about Bryce Kindop as well. So some of the things here with the Ducks, I think going along those lines of making moves, one thing he did, he made a move, Eddie. He brought in undrafted Bryce Kindop from the Everett Silvertips, and this guy has been just stupid good. 39 goals last season, 40 this season. He's been tearing it up. They signed him to a 3-year entry-level deal, just shy of $3 million. A great deal. He's also an RFA, obviously, and a lot of good things about this kid. I'm hearing that he goes into the corners, he fights hard, he goes for the puck. He's got good hockey IQ, hard to knock off his stick. Seems like everything's going pretty good for him. He's been taking a little bit, too many penalties this season. That's the only real thing I've heard. But I've had people reach out to me when the signing happened, Eddie, and a lot of people are really high on this kid. So at least Murray did do something. I mean, it didn't do it through the trade deadline, but he went and picked out another young guy that, this guy sounds like he could be a pretty good player. Obviously you have to see how it translates to the NHL level.
Oh, yeah, he's speedy, too. He's fast. So that's another aspect of this team. What we've been alluded to and wanted to do. They wanted to get faster, and it's a great signing. It's one of those, like, I know it's a cliche word, but it's one of those like low risk, high reward kind of things. And if it doesn't pan out, I mean, it's not really going to hurt anyone. It's just hopefully that his success with the scoring the points minus the penalties would translate when he can earn a spot on the Ducks roster. But it's just one of those things where I'll agree with Murray, and I like that, he's actually doing some actions now, getting the team better and faster and trying to get production up in goals. So I agree with him on that. It's good to see him not just talk crap and him actually producing it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do, and like I said, it's one of those low risk, high reward kind of signings, and it's going to be fun to see him come play for the Ducks, and hopefully, like I said, his scoring ability can translate to the NHL.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to watch any of those videos on him, just go to YouTube, right? They're always on there. You can check them out, and we actually will have a little update too on YouTube in the league news section. But before we get up to that, let's kind of talk a little update on the Ducks' new players. So we'll talk kind of forwards and defensemen here. The Ducks forwards have been doing pretty good, Eddie. The ones that they picked up, you've got Milano, Heinen, and Agazino, right? So far, Milano picked up some more assists, so now he's got 2 goals and 3 assists. Heinen got a couple goals this last week, so he's at 3 goals and an assist. As you talked about earlier in the show, he's only taken 1 penalty in 7 games, which is good because that was one of the issues that Murray had with Richie. So those are looking good. And they're both playing lots of minutes. Milano's playing over 16 minutes. Heinen's playing over 17 minutes. They're both being used on the power play. And as far as their puck possession numbers, they're okay. They're not great. Milano is, right around 50% as far as putting the Corsi and Fenwick scores together. Heinen's a little bit below 50, so not great, but still doing pretty good for the team. And then Agazino, the one I'm really not as excited about in terms of the forwards. He's had 1 goal in 5 games, which isn't terrible. He's playing just shy of 10 minutes. But he's done worse than the faceoff lately. He was at 54%. He's dropped down to 50%. But he's been playing very good defense. He hasn't taken any penalties at all, and his puck possession numbers are pretty good, sitting in the 46% there. So he's been good as a bottom 6 guy. Just not really, too much excitement as far as offense. He's not providing, a whole lot. But that's, they picked him up off waivers. So, I mean, you weren't really expecting a lot from him. You got him for nothing. So far, I like what I'm seeing from these 3 guys. Eddie, how do you feel, on the offensive pickups with Milano, Heinen, and Agazino?
I like them a lot, and really good job on breaking down the stats and looking all these stats up. Like, you did a really good job on that. I know you spent hours researching all this, but yeah, it's fun. Milano is one of those players. He just has he's a good hockey player. He's fast. He can shoot. He can score, and he has that swag too. I don't know if it's like relevant, I guess, to playing, but he has that certain swag. You see his little smirk that he has, that little cocky. You want to call him like this asshole's too cocky, but you like it. I don't know the best words to describe it, but he just has that swagger, and I like it, and it's cool to see. It's really cool to see. Agazino picked up off waivers. He has a chip on his shoulder. Obviously, a team kind of gave him away, and he wants to play like it. I think he's playing some of his best hockey I've ever seen him play. I watched it when he played for Colorado. I had never seen him play the style that he's playing with the Ducks right now, so it's really good to see. Heinen, that's, like I said, just one of my favorite trades. It's hands down. He's faster. He's smart. For lady fans or male fans that go that way, he's a good-looking guy too. So that never hurts having that in the team. And then Juice. I'm still just kind of pondering if I can call him Juice. I don't know if KB's gonna get mad by calling him Juice, but I think he fits in well. I think he has a future with the Ducks. It sucks that he probably getting sent down, and he just spent the rest of the season in San Diego. But I think he has a good future. He's a really smart player. His head's up all the time. He's offensively skilled. He can jump up on the play, but he has that defensive responsibility to get back on the play when he does jump up. So I really do like that. So I think I have no problem with any of the people that were brought in and the recent signing as well. I think it's all just benefits the Ducks, and it's going to move the Ducks up, moving forward. I do want to give a shout out to, I forgot to mention it, last night I was at the bar at Fridays in West Covina watching the Wild and Ducks play. I got a little cold and chilly, so I went to my car, I pulled on I took off my Ducks jersey, put my DucksNPucks sweater on. The group of guys that were walking out as I was coming back in and that screamed DucksNPucks and like were cheering. Shout out to you guys. Thank you for listening and thank you for supporting. That was actually fun to see. West Covina is a suburb of LA County, probably 20 miles east of LA. So it was actually cool to see some fans that predominantly aren't really like familiar with Ducks hockey in LA County and let alone DucksNPucks in LA County. So it was really cool to see that. So shout out to you guys. You guys are awesome. Like next time if you see me there, let me know. I'll buy you a beer. It's on me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always good when that happens, and that happened the last game with the Ducks. A friend of a friend I had met and came up and started talking to me and said, "Oh, you work on the DucksNPucks site and you do all this stuff." And I said, "Yeah, I do a lot of stuff on there and whatnot." And he just was very complimentary. He said, that he reads all the articles and stuff we post and he loves how we stay on top of the information. So always good to get the positive feedback. I love that stuff. As far as these new guys, like you said, Eddie, I'm with you. Juice was he's exciting. He's I love it. I mean, he's got a goal and assist in 7 games. +2, playing on the power play like crazy. He's averaging almost 22 minutes a game, a career high for him. And his puck possession numbers are really good. Almost 56% Corsi and 57 Fenwick. So, I mean, he's up there doing amazing stuff. I like what he's doing.
He's fun to watch too. Like he's really fun. Like when you watch him skate, like he's just fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, he's into the game. The other one with a chip on the shoulder, Milano, he's into it. I was a little hard on him as far as about shooting the puck. Yeah, he had a couple of shots. Obviously, in that first game, it scored, but then it kind of seemed to fall off. But he's gotten back up there. He's got 8 shots on goal now, and he's been shooting the puck a lot more as of late. So I like what I'm seeing there. The only one that's kind of disappointed me a little bit, Eddie, and part of it's not necessarily his fault, has been Irwin. He had a really bad game in Chicago, but granted, Manson was out, so he was thrust into playing a lot more minutes in that game. So I don't want to be too hard on him. I mean, he's been playing a career high too, 23 minutes, which he's not used to doing. His puck possession numbers aren't that great, 44 and 46%. So for him, I mean, he's not bad. I mean, we're talking about bringing him in as opposed to Holzer, so it's not that big of a difference there. He's not doing a lot of turnovers or getting too crazy, but he's just his defense and some of those goals, especially in Chicago, killed me. So he was thrust into a role that he's not normally used to. So he's going to have to play less minutes as the Ducks get players back. But I mean, of course, the Ducks are in a crappy situation, for lack of a better term, defensively. But like you said, overall, I like what I'm seeing for the most part with these guys. And with the defense, we'll have to see what happens. Kind of talk about some of the injuries here. As we mentioned, Manson came back. Good Branson. It sounds like a band. I was laughing with some of the fans. I said, "You heard of that new boy band? It's a Manson and Good Branson." So we were laughing about that. That was a joke at the hockey hot stove that some of the fans and I were talking about. But they're saying that he should be back sometime this week, which is good news, right? He's still listed on the IR, at least at the time of recording the show. They also talked about Fowler, saying that he could be back towards after Good Branson, the end of the week. So the Ducks could get hopefully these 2 guys back within this next week or so. The other update, which is pretty much what we knew already, they talked about Hampus Lindholm. All these updates were given by Bob Murray, by the way. He said that Lindholm's been very sore. They're talking about his back and his shoulder, and that's what we knew. We knew that all along. Basically, thank you to the Swedish media. They talked about what he had said right after that incident at the game. So that kind of gave us some update there. And it's kind of up in the air. They're saying there's different articles out there saying that they might shut him down. We'll have to see. And then, of course, Gibson with his groin strain. We don't know when he'll be back, but Stolarz is up for now, so it could be a few games. As far as all these injuries and stuff, I guess really the big thing, I saw some people talking about this, Eddie, and maybe you want to weigh in, is what do you think about the Ducks maybe trying to shut down Lindholm or Gibson for the rest of the season? Do you think either one of those would be something that maybe they should do, or do you think they should just try to bring them back once they're ready, or kind of what's your take on that? Because obviously the injuries now, even with the season winding down, has been a concern here.
I think Lindholm shutting him down makes more sense. Just let him get some rest. He's a superstar caliber kind of player, a top defenseman that we need, and we need in our foreseeable future. Gibson, I would say no. As a goalie, you just don't want to like play mind games with him. That's his crease. No matter how well he plays or bad he plays, that's still his crease. Like you don't want to shut a goalie down and tell him that, hey, we're going to shut you down for the season, because that will play a lot of mind games with you. I'm a Joe Blow nobody, and I just started playing in net, but I have a lot of pride in. And like every single goal that gets scored on me, like I take it personally, and I want to just save every shot that comes at me. And one of my teammates was telling me last night, like, dude, you can't stop them all. You're not perfect, but as a goalie, and I'm pretty sure a lot of goalies' mentality that play hockey, whether you're a pro or you're just Joe Blow nobody that playing beer league, you have that mentality too. And I think shutting him down will kind of like screw with him, like his mind a little bit. Like, no, just if he's ready to come back, let him come back, let him play, let him start, let him get his confidence up, and let him defend his crease. If he definitely can't, he's injured, not hurt. He's really injured, then shut him down until he's ready to come back. But I think shutting Gibson down would be detrimental to the team. Lindholm, he's a defenseman. He's needed to block shots. He's needed to be there and play those hard minutes and rough minutes, and without necessarily a break. If he's hurt, shut him down. It's not going to really affect him. It's like he's just going to get a little vacation. He's going to just rehab and come back a better player. So that's my take on it. I do want to mention too about Sonny Milano. We're talking about him recently on Instagram. I'm the social media manager on DucksNPucks, and I manage mostly all the comments and stuff on DucksNPucks Instagram. One guy was joking with you, Mike. I posted a clip. He said, I agree Milano is good, but really don't know who he is. How are you reporting on hockey? Come on, bro. I'm like, dude. Like, Mike was being sarcastic on that last comment. I wanted to just touch on that. Like, his name is James. Dude, I wrote you back. Come on. We know who Milano is. And trust me, we do a hell of a lot of research. You're trying to troll. That's fine. It's funny. Ha, ha, ha. But I can attest to Mike's. He's a great analyst, and he does his research, and he knows about. I think he's. I consider myself one of the best person to come to talk about the league, and anyone better than me is probably Mike. So good job, nice try, but you know what, you tried.
Yeah, I don't pay attention to that stuff anymore. I used to in the beginning when I started this. I used to see people, and I don't.
I just had to say it out. Like, it's just like I usually ignore that, but it's like, no, you're kind of like calling him into question. You're kind of like calling him like you're questioning your ability, and I'm gonna defend you, man. You're like my brother. Like I've said it before, like you are, and I know how hard you work on this show, and how hard you work on DucksNPucks, and I know you know your shit. So I just wanted to just throw that out there. And yeah, it's just one troll, just BSing, whatever. But I just want to say I appreciate all the fans out there. Like you guys just high-fiving us, or the guy at the bar was yelling DucksNPucks. Like that really means a lot, because we really do put a lot of effort into it. And if I think I work hard at doing this, no, Mike works 10 times harder. Especially he has a full-time career on his own, and he still makes that time to come and sacrifice his sleep and his personal time to report and be there on DucksNPucks. So like Mike, I give you a big shout out for that. Like that's just amazing.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, for some people that don't know, I worked really late on Friday night and basically operated on 3 hours of sleep to go to the hockey hot stove. And then because of circumstances out of my control on Saturday night, I was basically up for 25 hours straight with different things going on at work. I'm not going to go into it, but it's just the nature of what I do. And some of you know what I'm talking about. But I was really dead tired on Sunday, to say the least. Within a 48-hour period, I had about 3 hours of sleep. And part of that was because I wanted to go to this event and cover it and bring you guys this information, because I know not always is Eric Stevens at these. He was at one before, but he's not been in a couple of them, and he does a phenomenal job covering it. But I want to at least be there and get this information also, so we could talk about it on the show and have the article and whatnot. Also get that poll out there, and I like getting other fans' opinions and whatnot. So I appreciate it. And yeah, like you said, I before this show, a lot of people don't realize I spend several hours putting this stuff together, researching things and whatnot. When new players come in, I don't just go read one website and go, oh, this is what they say, so that's the guy. I go look at video, I look at what fans say, I go to different websites, I check out stuff, I research it, I watch some tape and whatnot. Thank you, YouTube. And I try to do those things to bring you the best information. I'm not perfect. I know that. I miss things here and there, but I try to do as best a damn job I can to bring the information about certain players or what's going on, or like a rule, breaking it down for you, looking it up, trying to give you at least a complete picture. It may not be 100%, but I think it's definitely in the high 90%. So and Eddie does a phenomenal job too. He does a lot of the social media and a lot of the customer service stuff that I just don't want to deal with sometimes, to be honest. But I do it too as well. Obviously, I run the Twitter. Eddie does too, and there's a few other people that do it. It's not just us two. And we do a lot of the other stuff. When you send us messages there, or Facebook or Instagram, we're always both trying to respond and take care of things, among with a few other people too. So I appreciate Eddie for doing all of that as well. So with that, I talked about YouTube. We'll shift to the league news. We have one part that involves the Ducks, but before we get to that little part, which is pretty funny, let's talk about YouTube. A lot of people are upset at this, Eddie, as we talk about the league news and whatnot. What in the world is going on with this? Because a lot of people cannot watch the Ducks on Fox Sports through YouTube anymore.
Yeah, before I get into the whole YouTube thing, I want to dedicate this show to your mom, Mike. You posted the post last night about Gone But Never Forgotten for International Women's Day. She's still here. I think she's still here with all of us, and she raised a really great man, and you should be proud of her, constantly. And I dedicate this show to your mom. And then to everyone who lost a mother, I know there's a lot of people, fans that reached out to us that lost their mothers. This shows to them, to you, and this is to your mom, Mike. So I really dedicate the show.
I appreciate it. I saw that it was International Women's Day and wanted to just post that out there. And same thing you said. There's a lot of people out there. I had a shitty, lack of a better term, month of January, losing 3 family members, and a lot of other people, those of you listening, responded and shared me your stories of either losing loved ones recently too, within these last couple of months or year, or even before. And we talked about those experiences, because when you lose a parent, a father or a mother for that matter, it's something it's difficult, obviously, but when you can connect to other people that have been in that situation and you're able to talk to them, it's a good thing. And some of my other friends, same thing. They lost their parents around the time I lost my mom. So it's just crazy stuff going on, and it was really good for people to reach out and talk to each other and help each other in times of need. So I appreciate that, Eddie. So with that, let's move along, and we'll wrap up the show with the league news.
Okay, so YouTube TV, apparently they had a tentative agreement to keep playing the Ducks games if you're in Southern California, for fans or wherever you are. Apparently that deal fell through and they didn't come to a certain amount of terms, so now they canceled for certain regions of hockey games, and more importantly for this podcast, they canceled all Ducks games. This is now it's a Sling TV, Dish, and now YouTube TV. They haven't reached an agreement with Fox Sports to play the game, so that tells me and tells the rest of the world that it's not these streaming services or cable companies. It's more like the Fox Sports ownership that are just being kind of greedy, and it just pisses me off that they use fans as pawns, and they don't really care about the fans. Like, they just care about that dollar. Like, $1 billion company won't flex over a $1 million deal. It's bull crap. It's bullshit. I'll say bullshit because I think it's the most appropriate word to use about this. So currently, I know fans have said that ESPN Plus, Hulu, if you have Spectrum, Direct, or whatever, you still watch the Ducks games. But it's just sad that we have to keep jumping through hoops trying to watch our team. It's crap. I'm not promoting anything. I'm not trying to be libelous or whatever, or promoting whatever broadcast you want to watch, but I would suggest that you just cancel your arrangement if you have with DirecTV and put pressure on them. I'm sorry, not DirecTV, YouTube TV, and put pressure on them and Fox Sports to, like, dude, come on, we're fans, like, we want our sports, like, just make a deal and let us watch it. I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
No, I just agree with you. The whole thing about it being for the fans and not agreeing to the deal, that's the thing. The fans lose out. So I'm with you on that. I just think it's unfortunate. I mean, I'm in a situation where I don't need it, so it doesn't affect me, fortunately. But for the other people out there, I've seen people saying that they're canceling their YouTube TV and going to other stuff, and you should. If someone's not providing you with the service and you feel you're being slighted a certain way, then you should cancel the service. I agree 100%. I don't have it, but I don't plan on getting it. I use DirecTV, as you mentioned, by accident, but I mean, yeah, I have DirecTV, so that's how I feel about it. It's just kind of a lose-lose for the fans. That's the sad thing, Eddie.
Yeah. In other news too, Matt Barnaby, he was arrested being drunk in public, and he apparently choked out a bouncer, which is fine. You know what? It's not fine. I'm not gonna make excuses. We all do dumb FUCK stuff when we're drunk. But what bothered me about this is he took to Twitter the next day and said that he'll be vindicated from the charges and his misunderstanding. It's like, dude, you screwed up. You drank a little too much. We all have been there, people that drink, and you had to say, like, you're just not owning up to responsibility. You're just making excuses, and that's what bothers you the most. It's like, yeah, he'll probably be vindicated. I don't know. He has the money to pay it off, like I mentioned before in the show, about other players getting arrested, big old smile on their face and happy. Like, if I got arrested, I'd probably be crying because I don't have that much money to make bail or pay my way out of it. But it just, as a hockey personality and a professional that he was, I think he should have just accepted responsibility and admitted to what he did wrong and move forward instead of just trying to make excuses for it. It's one of those bad things that just kind of draws shade to hockey world and stuff that we don't need. But you know what? To each his own. To anyone out there, just my advice is just whatever you do, just take responsibility for your own action and move forward and build yourself better than that. So, Roberto Luongo, if you guys remember that goalie, Vancouver goalie that played, he had his jersey retired, the first jersey retired in Florida's history, the player-wise. They had retirements for non-players and the shooting they had over there. But he had his jersey retirement. It's good to see that. Like, if you guys don't follow him on Twitter or social media, I suggest you do. He's so funny. Yeah, it's just really cool to see his jersey retired. Congratulations to him. Honda Center, moving on. Honda Center will oversee the food and beverage services at JT Smith's. The owner passed away recently, so hopefully the beer and food prices won't jack up. Like, man, like, instead of paying like the $4 or $5 for a beer, hopefully we don't pay like $17 for it. And then we have the Ottawa. You know what? Just can't stay out of the news. Like, it's just like right now they're the team that whatever team you root for. I know a lot of fans from different teams listen to us. We have our league news, and I've been people message about the league news that aren't Ducks fans. But right now, it's like, thank God I'm not an Ottawa fan. Well, I guess their GM that got hired in January got fired. Apparently, there was a heated argument between the owner and the GM, and he was using foul language and cussing, making his point, and he got fired. And Ottawa came out saying that it was just like their core standards. He kind of he went against their core standards. Another article came out that his ex-wife, posted on her blog saying that he was abusive and controlling. So it's ambiguous and everyone's just freaking out. Ottawa, I don't know what's going on with that team. I feel really bad for their fans. It sucks to see that their fans can drag through this. But I think it's, I'm not going to sit here and believe an ex-wife. Like, we all know people, your ex-boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, ex-animal. I don't know if you guys are into that. Hopefully not. But I know things get said in the heat of the moment. and you guys accuse people, but it's sad to see that with Ottawa and all the crap they're going through. It's just another one of their things. We had a good story about Bobby Ryan, him being like, that was the face of the NHL. It was happy, and then we had this. It's like, damn, it sucks. Moving forward, too, we had a goalie prospect, Metcalf. He actually got a penalty, and he sat in the box during a loss that he had against the Air Force Academy, I believe. It was a 5-1 loss. Seeing him in the box, he on Twitter, he posted, he quote tweeted saying like, "Oh, I'm on timeout," and then someone posted an article saying he shot the puck over the glass, delayed a game. He said he called it fake news. He didn't elaborate on what exactly happened, but you know what? It was just actually funny to see him in the box. I remember my first penalty as a goalie. We were getting our asses kicked. I think they scored it was 7-1. Once they scored that 7th goal, I got my stick and chucked it, just threw it at the wall. I was pissed. And I got a penalty. I didn't have to sit in the box. I kind of wish I did, because that would have been really funny and it would have been cool to see. But no, that's my first 2-minute penalty I got for unsportsmanlike conduct for throwing my stick. But it was just really funny, Mike, seeing him in the box. I know you reached out to him too and try to elaborate more on what happened. So hopefully he responds and we can get a definite answer on what exactly happened and transpired to get him in that box.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's difficult to get actual players from the team as far as coming on the show to talk, because you have to go through the proper channels to do so. So that part's a little bit difficult, but I did send him a DM asking about it. I read all the comments. I read a couple different articles about what happened, and at least I can give a partial answer to it, because they were talking about, he got a 2-minute penalty for shooting the puck over the glass, and that's why he went into the bench. And then, like you said, he goes, no, it's fake news. And that part is fake news, because he actually got a 10-minute misconduct penalty, and that's why he went to the box. That's one of the rules, that and a game misconduct are reasons where college players can get sent to the penalty box if you're a goalie, as opposed to just having someone do the whole 2-minute minor deal for you. So that was one of the situations. That's why he got sent there. This was a playoff game, their last playoff game. The Air Force swept Mercyhurst in the series. They also lost this game 5-1. So I'm not going to assume anything, but Metcalf was probably pissed off, and maybe he said something to the refs or did something that irritated them, because obviously they gave him that 10-minute misconduct penalty. Something had to warrant it from what he either did or said. Like I said, I don't want to assume, because I don't know exactly, and he was already calling out somebody else for saying fake news, but it has to be something, because how else do you get a 10-minute misconduct? But that's why he got sent there. He got that kind of a penalty. And you're right. This was hilarious. I was cracking up because of what had happened, and then him tweeting about it, saying he was on timeout. Everyone was going nuts. It was funny. And it kind of reminded me too, some people were talking about Gibson this last week, and they were saying how they want to see him get in a goalie fight or do something where he gets, booted out or something, just because of the way this season's gone with the Ducks and everything like that too. So it kind of reminded me of that. And I thought it was pretty funny, Eddie. That was really the highlight of the week, I guess, even though he's a prospect, but, outside of the Ducks games, if you'll, what will.
Mike, I have a question for you. Say you're an NHL player playing in NHL. What's the most likely penalty you would take? That you think you would take playing your first year in the NHL? You
mean like I would do it on purpose, or I would just get called for it because of the refs? In
general, just fighting, tripping. What's one penalty you think that you're your personality wise that you would most likely take? Your first year in the NHL. It
would be along the lines of either a roughing or a fighting penalty for sure, because I'm more like the Delorier type. I am not an all-star. I can't score very well. I suck at a lot of skilled type stuff, but I'm a big guy and I can hit hard. So that's the things that I can bring. So it would be some kind of a roughing penalty or a fight for sure, Eddie.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. Never get into a bar fight with Mike, because he'll kick your ass. But you know what? I was thinking the same thing. The way I played, I grew up playing. I wasn't that skilled. I wasn't that player, and the teams that I made weren't for skill. It was more grit. And like my most success was always being in front of the net or getting my nose into something that I shouldn't have getting my nose into, or protecting other players. So I would say that my first penalty would probably be dropping the gloves. I'd probably get my ass kicked, especially in the NHL. And if it was Delorier, I probably wouldn't fight that guy. I'd probably skate away from him. I think I'd probably fight a guy like Raquel that hasn't really had that much fight, but you know what? Like, those guys are brutal, and they'll probably beat my ass too.
Well, something I did forget to bring up early in the show was, Getzlaf got in a fight this last week too, and I forgot to mention it because it wasn't really a fight per se, but I kind of wanted to get your opinion on this too because we're talking about fighting, and that's how we would be. What did you think in that fight that he had? Because when they went at it, his chin strap was being held, and he couldn't really do anything. And the refs had to go in there and stop that. It wasn't much of a fight because a few punches were thrown at Getzlaf's head, and then that was it. Did you think that was kind of a cheesy move there? Because I saw some people originally saying, "Oh, Getzlaf got his ass kicked, for lack of a better term." And then I was telling people, well, you got to see what happened. When you look at the fight, Greenway actually gets a hold of his chin strap almost the entire time. Did you think that was like kind of a Bush League move, or do you think that's like a good tactic? Because, when you're fighting, you're usually going to grab the arm. You're going to try and grab the jersey, maybe the chest pad under the jersey. You know what I mean? That's how the normal course of fighting goes. I hadn't really seen that a lot where someone grabs the chin strap. What did you think about that?
I think it was kind of BS, like coming from a Ducks fan and a fighter standpoint. Like, I mean, yeah, I get it. I if you're in a fight, just everything goes. Like, you should do whatever to win the fight. But grabbing that chin strap, like, it was kind of a BS move. And it's like, dude, like, if you're gonna lose with some pride. And you grabbing the chin strap and trying to do that, I don't know. It seemed like a bitch move to me. I probably wouldn't do it personally. Like, I've lost. I'm probably even with the fights I've had all the years I've played. My hockey club or rec or beer league now. Like, I mean, there's times where I got my ass kicked, but I never really went to a move like that to grab a chin strap or kind of like sway in the way of me, winning it. I just went full on, just knuckles to face to knuckles, but I mean, yeah, I don't know.
No, I'm with you.
I don't know if I'm kind of confused because a fight, it's just, like I said, it's just, there's no rules in a fight, but I think that was kind of a little bit of a bitch move.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if Greenway tried to reach out and grab Getzlaf's jersey and missed and grabbed his chin strap, or if he purposely grabbed the chin strap.
Dude. He purposely.
I'll try and give a little bit of benefit of doubt, but I'm with you as far as that happening. It's like you do that, and it puts the other player at a position where they can't fight fair and are kind of somewhat defenseless. Because Getzlaf, you notice once he grabbed a hold, Getzlaf tucked his head down because, I mean, he can't move his body. He can't move his face. He's just going to get, pounded in the face. So he turned his head away and, Greenway threw a couple punches. But I'm with you. I thought that was kind of cheesy. I was like, really, man? I mean, you're going to do that? So, but I wanted to bring it up because we're talking about fighting right now. And I also saw some people going, oh, Getzlaf got killed. And it's like, well, look at the replay. Look at what happened.
No, he didn't get killed.
Yeah, you got to look at what happened.
Yeah, he's a big boy. He knows how to fight. Like, there's a ton of video if you want to go and YouTube Getzlaf's fighting. Like, no, he didn't get killed. He knows how to fight. He knows how to scrap. That was like I said, a B move, and it shouldn't have happened. Like pulling the chin strap, I would never do it. And I've been in situations where I got my ass kicked, and I probably could have did something like that, and to have kind of swing in my advantage, but I just had more pride. And just like we talked about too before, how Delorier fought Clifford, and a little like tap after, it's like you have that respect that you're fighting someone. And times that I fought, and times I got my ass kicked, I the only thing I remember from the fights is that the person that beat my ass like either gave me that little good job fight, or we had a beer in the parking lot after. So that was that was the respect and the thing I liked the most.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, we'll wrap up the show. Like we said, don't forget March 23rd. We'll have another watch party at Steelcraft. We'll talk about it on the next show as well to remind you. Check out our shirts at tpnhockey.com. Also on the Volley. .com as well. You can get just the DNP themed shirts, and also check on patreon.com/DucksNPucks. We're still giving away jerseys and cool hockey gift cards. We still got, like we said, about a month ago, so you can still win some stuff if you sign up. And with that, enjoy the week, and let's go Ducks.